So now we're going to focus on the future, aligning education and government. And I'd like to introduce the panelists and the moderator as they make their way up. We have Yolanda Allen, who's the Assistant Commissioner for Workforce Development at the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development. Dr. Deborah Cornavaca, Director of Government Relations, New Jersey Education Association. Scott Shaw, President and CEO of Lincoln Technical Institute. Robert Bullard, Associate Vice President, External Engagement and Economic Development, Rowan University. And this panel is moderated by Catherine Frugé Starghill, our great partner at NJCCC, where she serves as the Vice President. And she's also the Executive Director of the New Jersey Community College Consortium for Workforce and Economic Development. Are we all set? Are you all ready? Let's give them a round of applause. Stage is all yours.
I love working with Michelle because she's like the only one in this room who could pronounce my maiden name properly. So thank you for that, Michelle. It's exciting to be here. Obviously, hello, Robert. All of us are very concerned about ensuring that the silos are minimized, that government, education, and employers are working together to get it done, to ensure that employers have the right workforce, that students are getting the proper education and workforce training so that we can all prosper as New Jersey residents. And so we're going to talk about what it looks like now, what it could look like in the future, and really just contemplate what needs to be changed, enhanced, what we all could do better from our individual perspectives. So I'm gonna start with a hard-hitting one. We talk about alignment across K through 12, higher education, the state's workforce development system. But who actually owns responsibility for ensuring that all of those entities that are necessary and required for a talented pipeline of employees, who's responsible for making sure they're all aligned and working together? And I'm sorry, I'm gonna start with Dr. Allen from the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development.
So good morning, and thank you for allowing me to be here. I think the responsibility lies with all of us, especially those who are up on the stage. Education, K through 12, higher education, our unions, our employers, our community colleges, et cetera. I think we are all responsible for the talent pipeline. But I do think that, and all of the state departments, but I do think that there is a special role that the New Jersey Department of Labor plays, because we are ultimately responsible for the public workforce system. And not only are we responsible for the talent pipeline, and our focus and our mission is the entire pipeline, education and employment. And not only that, we are responsible for ensuring that individuals who are disconnected from the pipeline have on-ramps to the pipeline. And so I think while we're all responsible, I do believe that we have a unique role to ensure that we are cohesive in aligning all of the workforce and education partners. And in addition to that, listening to our employers to make sure that we are hearing what they're saying and we are developing programs for individuals on the pipeline and, again, individuals who are not connected to the pipeline, that we are developing programs to help individuals access employment opportunities.
Thank you, Yolanda. I appreciate having been at the Department of Labor for a time, right? You acknowledging, maybe you're the head, but value all of the right? The participants, the players. How is the state measuring whether workforce investments are actually leading to employment outcomes? And are those results transparent to the public?
You know, that's a really good question. And, you know, we oversee about $350 to $40 million in programs, services, in programs. And we're responsible for 23 local workforce one-stop career centers, and we provide guidance and leadership for our 17 local workforce development boards. And when we receive that funding that ultimately comes to the state, and it is funneled down to some of our local workforce development boards, we have federal metrics, placement, retention, credential attainment, and all of that. But that's just one part. That's just one part of the metrics. And all of that is available to the public. And that's really for our federal funding. And another layer of that, not only do we have a lot of federal funding, but we also have a lot of state funding. And I think it's incumbent upon us to ensure that all of the apprenticeship programs that we have, the Murphy administration and on into the Sherrill administration, we've spent about $115 million on apprenticeship programs. Now, we stood up the apprenticeship network in the state of New Jersey in the last 8 years, but I'm happy to say that we commissioned a study, partnered with Rutgers University, commissioned a study for our Gains program, which is growing apprenticeships in non-traditional sectors, and we have some preliminary results, and it is amazing, the economic mobility that we're creating for people in our apprenticeship programs. We have to do that in all of our state-funded programs, and we have to make those those studies available to the public, because it is incumbent upon all of us to make sure that the taxpayer dollars are going toward real programs, and if there are ways in which we need to make adjustments, we need to do that. Because one of the things, and I don't mean to take up too much time, but one of the things that was special about the Department of Labor, and you've heard some of the programs that we've been engaged in, is that we have funding to seed new programs. So you can fail fast with the department. We can partner with the Department of Labor. We can try new career pathways. We fund a nurse residency programs, teacher apprenticeship programs, but we got to measure whether they work or not. If they don't work, we got to adjust. We have to fund something else. But to get to your question directly, federal metrics, yes, it's all public, made available to the public. We are right now engaged in doing studies to see the impact of all of our state-funded programs.
Excellent, excellent.
Could I ask, I'd like to go back to your first question. I don't necessarily have, obviously, the answer to it, but I would like to share observations that we see from interacting with our students. We train people in a 12-month process to go into the skilled trades, so it's an accelerated process. And what we see coming into our schools are students that either aren't aware of these opportunities. So one opportunity is to better make sure that students throughout their education process know about the different alternatives that are out there, not just college, which is a great alternative for many, but not for everyone. The other thing what we hear and we heard mentioned in the earlier one is soft skills. And as an accelerated program where we're giving students a lot of hard skills, in 12 months it's very difficult to give them all the soft skills that they need. Soft skills are developed over years. And one of the things that employers can do and help people is to give people jobs while they're in high school, and I don't know what you can do at lower levels, but if you're not in the workforce, not working, you're not gonna understand, oh, I need to show up on time every day, or how do I interact with other people? Unfortunately, a lot more young people today don't seem to have jobs in high schools like they did maybe in prior generations. And I think that this is holding them back from having the right social skills to get into the workforce and be productive. And then we're trying to fill that, but it's at a later stage, and as I said, you just can't do it all. So having employers and having opportunities for students, whether it's a paid opportunity or not, but just where they have responsibility, they can learn what different jobs are, they can find out, hey, this really resonates with me or it doesn't. Assuming that we can just kind of feed them all this information and it'll happen, I don't think is the right answer.
Right. We're going to swing back to that because that's a very important subject. Certainly when I was at the Department of Labor, that's all we screamed, right? Soft skills, soft skills, soft skills. But there's a growing push toward credentials, certificates, alternative pathways, sometimes referred to as micro-credentials. But how confident are we that what's being taught across institutions really aligns with what employers need right now? Robert, I want to understand how higher education is ensuring that the curriculum aligns with employer needs. As a parent of a college student, my son better get a job after he gets his bachelor's degree. How are you ensuring that?
Well, have him. Is he at Rowan yet, or
He
what
is
do we?
not at Rowan.
Sorry, just
You're off
checking.
the
No.
hook.
All right. So, no. Thank you for the question, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. I think more broadly, we have to lean to the expertise in the room, right? Higher ed has a structure that we know that works well for credentialing for what industry needs, but that knowledge comes from all of you in the room. And how do we do that? In the last panel, they taught us about this idea of experiential education, right? The idea in this environment that you can, and our president says this all the time, that you, by osmosis, after 3 hours of lecture, get all the information that you need and you can go right into the world of work, right? The idea of the sage on the stage is dead. What we really need to do and look at is this idea of experiential education and have our students as a part of the curricular process and looking at what the trades do with apprenticeship, have the students immerse in the actual job that they're going to be doing, get credits for that, and then make practical decisions about their future. So one way that we do this really well with the idea of credentialing, I see my friend Jarrett from RCBC over there, is with Lockheed Martin and RCBC, right? We have a stackable credential model where they can go to RCBC, get a 2-year engineering technician degree.
RCBC is Rowan College.
Oh, sorry, Rowan College of Burlington County. Sorry. I'm sorry, I'm not in
Community
South
college.
Jersey today, so I apologize. Plus, we're in higher ed. I come with acronyms just to sound smarter. Just don't mind us. But with that said, they can start at Rowan College of Burlington County, get a 2-year degree, and get a job that pays $65,000 a year, right? Then they can stack that with another 2 years at Rowan to get a bachelor's in engineering. And then we worked with Lockheed Martin to write the curriculum for the master's. So we are employing Lockheed Martin professionals to be our adjuncts to teach those lessons to our master's students. Again, so what we're doing is we're employing the leaders in the field to be the adjuncts for us to make sure that we can set up a thriving pipeline. I look at, my friend Pete Connolly over here from the NJMEP, and the thing is we could do that as early as possible, right? The idea is that sometimes we chase the jobs that are available now.
Right.
And the thing that we want to think about, and we think about a lot, is the students that are entering college right now, your son's going to work into the year 2075, right? That's crazy to think about. For us to impart every skill set they're going to need in the next 4 years is crazy for us to think about. But what we need to focus is on, one, how can we teach them how to learn? How can we teach them how to engage? How can we teach them those skill sets so when they grow and develop in those jobs, they're thriving, not because they're chasing the newest technology, but they got a great foundation of skill sets they've learned on the job. And that's how we back that in to our Rowan degree.
That's incredible, and Rowan has done a great job of doing that and aligning with community colleges and data science and many other industry sectors, and so we certainly appreciate that. Deborah, I am going to get to you because you touch on the most important part, right? But I do want to ask Scott, since career-focused training often moves faster than traditional institutions, what are you doing differently to stay aligned with employer needs in real time? Being the president of Lincoln Tech.
Sure, thank you. So we're very much focused on getting students jobs. They come to us specifically because they want to get employment. So to ensure that they do get the right employment and have the right skills, every 6 months we invite employers to come in and frankly critique our students. Tell us what they do well, tell us what they don't do well, tell us where the industry is going so that we can give them the skills to make you productive. And we do that, frankly, because our accreditor requires us to do that, but it's good business sense. Even with that, though, you don't always get the full story. And we just recently had, we're the largest, well, now we're actually the second largest in New Jersey, providing automotive technicians out there. And we've been offering a curriculum that basically has been industry standard for the last probably 50 years. But we kept hearing from employers that, well, your students have some knowledge, but they don't necessarily have the right skills to hit the job running. So we sat down, 18 of them last week, frankly, and said, this is the direction we want to move in. Would you be supportive of that? Because it's kind of going against the grain and what the rest of, I'll say, the industry is doing. And surprisingly, I've never been in a room where I've had 100% agreement that these are the skills that you want. And the challenge was we were providing a very broad education, and getting back to the point, in the first couple of years, you're only going to use a small portion of that. Right. So instead of giving this broad education, give them a real focused attention to the real skills that are going to allow them to, day one, be successful and start gaining that confidence so they can then get promoted up within the sector. So it's from talking to industry, understanding what they need, and then we also, depending on demand, that's where we go. Now, with that said, there's huge demand in the manufacturing sector, but we cannot attract students to that sector. And that's a really frustrating thing for me, because it's one of our better, frankly, return on investment programs, but we've shut down 3 of them, as we have campuses around the country, even though everyone needs it, but we cannot, for whatever reason, attract students to go into that field, even though they can make great wages.
Right, so we all have to do a better job collectively, maybe in marketing, yes, career awareness, which I want to bring you, Deborah, in.
But also in just even in K-12 introduction, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Everything from elementary school career days, where we may not be having people in manufacturing talk anymore because there aren't that many people around, all the way up through internships and, identifying what skills students are enjoying and where they're thriving, and attaching that, connecting that to the careers and professions that we know we need. These are ways of doing it, because if we wait all the way through school, it's almost too late to get them to an industry which isn't attracting enough people.
I think junior achievement is in the room, and I know that they're focused on that early
But and so
exploration.
It's in clubs, it's partnering with businesses to say, if these are the sectors we need and these are the skill sets that are needed, if it's part of the K-12 curriculum formally, that's great, but then what are the clubs and the supplemental work that we can wrap around that to give students the exposure and the experience they need to be able to go into these pathways?
So is that something that the state should be supplementing, maybe, to ensure that in fact we are providing the information early enough in a manner that is systematic?
If you're asking if I think the state should put more money into public education, sure, yes. But I think it goes back to your first question about the responsibility, right? And I think the state does have a unique role to play. It's not the state's responsibility. Nothing ever works if you just say the state's responsible. It has to have buy-in, engagement, and participation. And to your point, it's got to be a feedback loop, right? We've got to have it. But the state has a unique role in helping provide the space for that collaboration, that partnership, and then successful strategies. And I want to be really clear about the distinction here when I say strategies, because we are a state of home rule. Yep. We're a state of very independent colleges and K-12 systems, and it would be ridiculous to say you all are going to do this. Like, there's no surer way of failure than to try to say here's the model you must follow. But if you develop strategies and you say here's the strategy and here's the people we know and we have lined up from the state that are great partners, and here's the clearinghouse where businesses can come for internships, and here's the sectors that can say we really need positions in these sectors, and the state helps manage that. And this thing I'm very hopeful on with Governor Sherrill, because she's really talked about that. And we heard the LG here today talking about breaking down these silos. I think the state has a unique responsibility, and while I would always advocate for more money, it's less about the money at this moment as it is bringing together the wealth of good things that are happening, but they're happening idiosyncratically across the landscape, and figuring out how to develop structures and strategies so that K-12, higher ed, workforce all know where to enter the system, to share the information, and then develop specific solutions for the region, the district, the county, at whatever level you want to operate at.
Where would those strategies live? How could we ensure that everyone in K through 12, that they're all implementing those strategies.
Right, and that's one of the
board.
biggest
Urban,
challenges, right?
Rural.
4 years in government taught me in the governor's office, you have the best idea, and implementing it is where 90% of the failure happens, right? And so I think it's a couple of things. I think the first is really making it visible at the highest level of government. So having the governor and the LG talk about this helps. I think some of the things that the governor is talking about doing, bringing multi-departmental and stakeholder groups together to addressing like housing would be appropriate for this kind of topic. And then you have to have a certain amount of technology available to you to put the information in and then make it accessible out. But what you need to do is rinse and repeat in this state. Right? And people tell me, oh, I've given that speech. I'm like, you gave that speech once. There's 21, go out and do it again, right? You've got to talk about it consistently and persistently across the landscape. But then the other thing I think we really need to do is to prioritize, because the state cannot advocate for every profession that needs workforce at the same time equally well. So the state should say, and I'll be selfish, I'll take nursing, teaching, and manufacturing for the first 3 years. It's not going to be the only thing the state does, but it's going to be our focus. And it's where we're going to really put money. We're going to put downstream into junior achievement, into middle school clubs, into internship programs. We're going to highlight and focus that. And then once that gets going, you pick the next 3. But we can't just do it all at once and do it well at the state level. We're going to have to make some choices. But if we create the structure, then, you know, if South Jersey's a little ahead of us and your structure's already there, they can go ahead and be doing more at Rowan, right? And Rowan's a great example of where you're seeing vertical and horizontal integration. And so you may be ready to tackle the next 3 professions. But we have to make some hard choices about priorities, but the state has to give leadership, and then we have to be persistent in our messaging, consistent in delivering it, and relentless in the conversations over and over again, because that's the way our state is.
That's right. That's
Too
right. We have to
localized
say it
otherwise.
again and again because we're New Jerseyans. I don't understand. Yolanda.
So I was going to say something, but I could not agree more with my colleague. And I think that what she's talking about, it happens, but it happens in one area over here, one area over there. We are supporting all of what she's talking about at the New Jersey Department of Labor, but what she's talking about really is a state strategy and that we can all buy into and wrap our hands around. And I'll just add one piece to that. Kids need examples of success. So for us to develop these strategies, it needs to be a job connected to it, where they need to see individuals not going through our pathway programs, our apprenticeship programs, but they need to see examples of folks actually getting jobs and what those jobs look like. And so I'll just add that piece to it. And I think the spreading the great news is key, in having a campaign around it. I almost feel like, you know, we for years have had a campaign around going to college. We need a campaign around apprenticeship programs, work-based learning programs, with the same level of intensity, because those are the jobs for our future. And
Absolutely.
Could I just add something? I'd say look at the marketplace. I hear that we have waiting lists to go to vocational high schools. If there's a shortage in the state of tradespeople and people that are going to get vocational education, and there's a waiting list at these schools, it seems like the problem is reallocate resources to get more people into these trades and just live, you know, take advantage of what the marketplace is telling you. You don't need to come up with a new strategy. You already have something in place, just enhance it.
That's right. I know that the New Jersey Department of Education has a division for career and technical education. And 100 years ago when I was at the Department of Labor, that agency was actually spending money, funding, on attracting instructors from industry. Folk who work near retirement, just over it, whatever. Like, we have to have state strategies that do that.
Can I just want to add an important piece, though, is that there's been an increasing segregation between our VOTECs and our 4-year high schools that's really detrimental. Part of this is financial burden. Part of this is by, if you're going to be in a traditional 4-year college, on the, you know, the college pathway has been prioritized. We need to make sure you have enough AP classes and you're getting the right scores, and we need to make sure that your standardized testing is measuring us as successful. But what's happened is, you know, what's the first to go? Carpentry, shop, right? That these other skills are taken out of the high school and the traditional 4-year, and they're said, if you want to do those, go to VOTEC. Now, not everybody can get into the VOTEC. Some people don't know what they want early enough to make that decision. And by narrowing the curriculum in these high schools out of necessity often, it's detrimental to exactly what we're talking about. So we have to, again, it's about integration and opportunity being not just segregated over there, but available through multi-entry points along your educational pathway.
And why is it either or? Ideally, I would love for my son to get his bachelor's. He's majoring in international business and business AI, and also learn a trade. Like, I really want him to do both.
You can come to Lincoln Tech.
You know what? And if you give me a discount, we might do that. So I do want to talk about, because this is, really important, right? We've come up with some strategies. We've identified some opportunities, a few challenges. But if we were having this exact same conversation 3 years from now, what is one measurable outcome that would prove New Jersey's workforce system is more aligned and effective than it is today? Like, what is success? What?
I think the one thing, and I think Cindy said it in the previous with the carpenter, like, and to your point, Catherine, it's not, this or that, but both. I mean, I'm a very proud product of the trades. I have a union card in New York City, but my parents promoted education. They said, hey, you're going to get a 4-year degree. You're going to be the first in your family to go to college. And that's important, right? Because it provides more opportunity. But the one thing I think when we look from a metric standpoint is that we send about 30,000 students out of state for, education beyond high school, right? And again, it's naive for us to think that we're going to get all 30,000 to stay in state. That's right. Like, again, our biggest asset is sometimes our biggest detriment, that we have tremendous resources and opportunities that are within an hour's drive. But again, just think about that K through 12 investment that we make in those students, right? So it's upwards of $300,000, right, in each student. So if we get 10% of those students to stay, it's almost $1 billion of investment that we're keeping in the state. And again, that starts with different training and access programs. Again, I say this from a 4-year college lens. Not every student has to go to a 4-year or a 2-year college to be successful, but we shouldn't turn anyone away from higher education that wants it, regardless of what that is. For us, we need to partner together and say, how can we keep those students that are making decisions about what their next step is to stay in state, to thrive in state? For a lot of the public universities, I know our friends from NGIT are over there, our students stay in state after they graduate. They work here, they thrive here, they have families here, they have kids here, and those kids pay taxes, right? So for us, if we can look to say, hey, if we can start to carve out, again, not all 30,000, but if we can say, can we keep 10%? Can we keep 3,000 more students in state every year? That return on investment will pay such dividends down the road.
And if we support students through completion, right, I feel like those results, the students being successful, will actually serve as a commercial for others, and then it won't be just, we'll take a portion of the 30,000. We'll get more.
No, and then again, you have to applaud the Secretary of Higher Ed's office and this administration and previous administrations. Some college no degree has been a game changer, because that's like saying I'm going to buy a house but never live in it, right? I'm going to pay the mortgage payments, but I'm never going to realize the benefits of having a home, right? And for schools like Rowan University, like, we talk a lot about this ROI. For Rowan, and this comes from a Georgetown study, that over a 40-year window, the return on investment to going to a school like Rowan than not going on to higher education is $1.9 million, almost $2 million over 40 years. Even with the cost of attendance going up, and we understand that college is expensive, that's almost a 16x return on your investment. Again, if we can get those smartest and brightest to thrive in the state, whatever that may be, we can make those connections here. And again, to your point, Catherine, that can start anywhere, especially in this new environment where it's naive that you're only going to go to school for 4 years when you're 18, right? You're going to have to go back to some level of learning when you're 30, 40, 50. If we can make those connections now and have them thrive here, the dividends will pay for themselves down the road.
So lifelong learning, right? Connections between K through 12, community colleges, 4-year colleges, connection or engagement of employers to ensure that all education starting K through 12 really is providing the skills, soft or hard, that the students need, right? All of that needs to be connected. How are we going to do that, Deborah?
Can I, 3 years from now, I mean, there's the global way of looking at 3 years of success, but the macro from the K-12 lens, I would say this. Hearing so many people in the business sector say we need more soft skills, we need people who are lifelong learners, because the job they get today, to your point, isn't going to be the job they're going to have 10 years from now. First of all, we see the mobility in the workforce, but then we see the change in the skills needed for the workforce, right? So lifelong learners, better collaboration, teamwork, communication skills. What we need in the K-12 space is the support and the confidence and the trust in from the business world that teaching those, which is harder to measure, you can't measure them like you can an SAT or a standardized test score, right? You can't measure a soft skill on an SAT score. But those are the skills that the business community is telling us is lacking. We need to get back to trusting the educators to give them the time and space to do more project-based learning, which is the best way of doing it, to be able to bring more people into class for that experiential learning, and to take a little bit of the pressure off of being so data-driven, which is the easier stuff to measure, but the harder thing to see the skills that you all are telling us we need. And there is a feeling that there's so much pressure put down to be data-driven in K-12 that every educator I talk to will say, what we're missing is the space to deliver the education that the business community says it wants. So there's this tension that we need to resolve. So 3 years from now, I would love to see the space and trust and support for more project-based learning in K-12, for less data binders, and more time bringing in experts in community and partnership, which take time and take development and take relationships. That to me would be a huge success, because on the other end of it, you'll be getting students who have those soft skills. So when you're trying to give them the hard skills for the job they want, they're not lacking those other pieces that make them successful in the long run. And that's such a tension and a frustration I think is so critical to resolve.
And I would say that success for us at the Department of Labor, I mean, Callie said earlier in our conversations that we're going to have a supply problem. So what that means is that we're going to have to make sure that we are really working with our community colleges and our industry partners and our businesses to make sure that we are engaging those who are out of work and out of school, who fell out of the pipeline. We are engaging them and getting them back on track into a pipeline so that they have economic mobility for their families. In 3 years, if we are increasing that labor participation among that population who has low attachments to work, who are incarcerated, who need a job, I think that's success for us. So we need this alignment so that we can create opportunities for folks that are not even on our pipeline.
Scott.
I would say if we don't have to be here in 3 years would be proof that we've solved the problem.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
But I am sure there's always, the world constantly evolves. There'll be another iteration of this no matter what we are able to achieve. I think enough people here are saying certainly directionally everything that we need to have as far as this more interaction, more awareness, more alignment, creating soft skills training throughout the educational lifespan. And in order to, I think, get businesses comfortable, I think they would need to have to understand how you're delivering the soft skills and having, sharing curriculum as we do with these arts projects, because it's going to develop this aspect, or I think they just need to be educated themselves on how those skills are being developed, and then they will get more comfortable with them as long as the schools are kind of consistently offering that to their students.
And could I just say to that, you know, it's very interesting because the standards are set by the Department of Education, what we teach, and that's a space that I would encourage business communities looking for specific skills to be involved with, paying attention. Standards come up for review every 5 years. Are we teaching the math skills that are needed? We were just talking with a building trade the other day that said one of the biggest problems they have is getting the math test passed, that they need to enter that profession. Well, I want to know what the skills are they're looking for, And where are we teaching that in the curriculum, and where are we testing that? But we've got to look at it from that standard level of the Department of Education, because that's what determines curriculum in a school. When you tell us that we're not teaching what's needed, it doesn't start in the school building. It starts at the standard level. And that's the kind of education we want to get out and work collaboratively, because no educator wants to be teaching something that's not of value. Right? And there's lots of ways to teach critical thinking skills and collaboration. So let's find out what it is where we have gaps, or what would attract someone to accounting? What is the right math to be teaching for that? Those are discussions we should be having at that level, and that's why at the state level, that integration amongst departments, the Department of Labor telling us here are the sectors where we need people, talking to the business community, what are the skills, and then going back to higher ed and DOE, and where standards are reviewed, and infiltrating all those spaces. Yes.
It's a circle, and we all need each other. So thank you to NJBIA for providing my friends and I to have this conversation in front of everyone. And I think we've come up with some things that can be added to your next report. I think that was my task. I'm done now. Thank you all. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, let's have a great round of applause for this panel. And just FYI, let's wish our moderator a happy birthday. And tomorrow's her special day. Yeah, little birdie. All right, now we've come to a really great point in the program. Like, it hasn't been fabulous so far. I just can't write the notes down quick enough. But I do have to say, over the last couple of hours, we've heard some new things, some new concepts. We've validated some existing things, be they good opportunities or challenges, right? We see some of the obstacles in our way. We hear about, childcare, transportation, flexibility, what the next generation worker wants and needs. And some of these themes that keep coming up, and if there's one word that was probably the key buzzword for the morning, had to be, alignment. I heard alignment multiple times, and we know that is critical at the center of everything. Agility and critical thinking as those skills of the future. Some of these other buzzwords, obviously collaboration. These are things we want to take into our thinking. The idea that we have to make, work and our jobs fun. And this is really important, the idea of culture in a workforce. And we talk about this at BIA, all the time. When we put our boots on the ground each and every day, right, we're passionate about what we do. We love advocating on behalf of New Jersey's job creators for an affordable and regionally competitive business climate, and being in venues like this each and every day. When we're passionate about what we do, people see that passion, and it creates followership, right? And we always talk about in those jobs earlier, we were saying, how do we make banking, right? My God, you're creating the financial future of this workforce, right? They need that. So how do we take each one of these industries we heard from and get that culture and that fun and that passion out there? And then how do we create the learning environment? Because the reality is so true, lifelong learners. I'm an attorney by trade, right? I have to continue to do legal education my entire life to keep my license. But at NJBIA and at Focus, what we work for and we aspire for is career readiness, pre-K to post-16, to lifelong learning, articulation across the entire pathway. And I think we heard that this morning. Big validation for me, right? It doesn't just start at high school with awareness. And frankly, it doesn't necessarily just start at K-12, as we're taking more attention into pre-K and early childhood development and things like Start Strong New Jersey that BIA is proud to be a partner in. Pre-K, post-16, lifelong learning, cradle to grave, staying agile. These are the things we have to capture in order to make sure that we have a workforce out there ready for the future and that we can all be a strong part of it. Now we're going to go into these great breakout sessions, and now it's your turn to help to inform. I hope you all loved your pre-packet that you got. I hope you had an opportunity to take a look at it to help to prepare you for what comes next. We're going to break out into our 3 breakout sessions. And in a minute, I'll tell you what they are and how you're going to get there. But this is also my last time to address you today, because we're going to finish the program in those breakouts versus try to bring you back in here. So I just want to do a great thank you to, again, all the partners and sponsors who made this possible. I want to thank the great team at NJBIA that put this together. This was massive, a lot of outreach. You could see the great talent we had up here. And I want to wish you all, great success in what you're doing each and every day, and encourage you to stay part of this discussion. What we come out of in the next few hours and from today is just the start of the continuation of this discussion, right? Everything is a journey. You know what? We have to be here 3 years from now. We can't not be here because we'll be thinking about what's the next best iteration of what's to come based upon what we're able to accomplish in these 3 years. And we're all going to continue to be a big part of that, okay? So thank you for being here today.